You walk into a crowded place, and no one notices you, but you don't notice yourself either. That's why you like crowds, agglomerations. You're not looking for people. You're looking for disappearance, vanishing, a chance to blend in without being seen, and call that fun, diversion. The truth is simple and brutal. The fuller the place, the emptier you become, vazio. You don't crave movement. You crave distraction, distração, a way to dodge what hurts, before silence catches you. And deep down, you know it. The crowd works like anesthesia. That's why you always go back, even though you never leave healed. But there's a detail you avoid, one no one ever told you, one that changes everything you think about yourself. Why does silence scare you so much, when it's the only thing that reveals who you really are? You think you love crowded places, crowds. But that isn't sociability, social behavior. It's emotional survival, sobrevivencia emocional. It's your way of not collapsing. It's an old strategy, one you use without noticing. This has a name. Winnicott called it the false self, self-falso. A self built to please, to function, to avoid disturbing anyone, including yourself. That's why you run to crowds, because no one there asks for depth, profundidad. No one asks if it hurts. No one notices your silence. It's easy to exist without showing yourself. It's easy to pretend everything is fine. But there is something deeper. Jung said, what you avoid ends up ruling you. And you avoid yourself. You avoid your shadow, sombra. You avoid the version of you that still bleeds. You avoid what the crowd keeps hidden. When you enter a crowded place, you feel relief. For a few minutes, everything shuts off. Guilt fades. Insecurity sleeps. Your memories quiet down. And you think you're getting better. But you're not. You're just walking away from yourself. One step at a time. One night at a time. One forced smile at a time. And it drains your soul. Your heart doesn't want noise. It wants courage. Courage to look inward. Courage to admit what hurts. Courage to stop running. Courage to exist without masks. Mascaras. You learned to hide. And you called it personality. You called it style. You called it, that's just who I am. But it's not true. It's protection. The crowd is your emotional prosthesis, protis emotional. It gives you just enough to keep walking, but never enough to heal. It distracts you, but it doesn't hold you. And you feel that every time you go home. And here's the part no one told you. The pain you avoid is trying to show you something. Something about your story. Something about your emptiness. Something about your identity. Something only silence can reveal. You believe you love people, pessoas, but you don't. You love the feeling of disappearing among them. You love not having to exist fully. You love turning off your pain for a few minutes and calling that social life, vida social. You think the crowd embraces you, crowd, but it only distracts you. No one there sees you. No one there recognizes you. No one there touches what you truly feel. And that feels safe until it doesn't. You confused movement with belonging, pertencimento. You thought vibration was connection, conexão. You thought laughter was healing. You thought company was love. You thought physical closeness fixed emotional distance. None of that was true. You weren't looking for people. You were looking for a hiding place, a detour, an eraser, layers of voices to escape your own, a silence you would never have to hear. Jung called this a pact with the shadow sombra. When you avoid looking at yourself, it grows. When you run, it takes over. When you silence yourself, it screams. When you hide, it finds you. Always at the worst moment. You always thought you were extroverted, extrovertida. But extroversion isn't running outward. It's feeling whole inside. It's being able to be alone without collapsing. It's looking at yourself without fear. And you never learned how. The truth is harsh. You don't love crowded places. You love the illusion they create. The illusion that you are alive. The illusion that you are accompanied. The illusion that it doesn't hurt anymore. But all of that falls apart when you get home. When you close the door. When the adrenaline drops. When silence returns. When you realize the crowd took everything and left you with yourself. And that's when the illusion reveals its price. Because what you fear most isn't being alone. It's discovering what exists inside you when no one else is around. And that answer is deeper than you imagine. And you won't hear it yet. If you feel like this story is about you, that's not a coincidence. It means your soul is finally asking for answers, not distractions. So click the button and subscribe now, because every video on this channel helps you break the patterns that silence your identity. Here, you understand your pain through psychology, and you understand your purpose through God. You spent years running from silence, silencio, and never noticed that silence was exactly where God wanted to meet you. Not in crowds, multidões, not in loud laughter, not in the energy of packed places, lugares lotados, but in the space where no one else can enter. The silence you fear is the same silence where God whispers. That's where your soul breathes, where your masks fall, where truth appears, and God is never afraid of it. You think you're broken, but God sees something else. He sees someone tired of surviving, someone trying to stay whole, someone begging for peace without realizing it, someone he never left. And then the verse comes alive in you. Search me, God, and know my heart. You asked without asking. You cried out without a voice. You surrendered without knowing. And God heard you in the gap between one noise and the next. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. He knows. He knows the knot in your throat. He knows the fear of being yourself. He knows the emptiness that follows you when the party ends. He knows the weight you try to hide. See if there is any offensive way in me. And there is. Not because you're bad, but because you're surviving. You created shortcuts to avoid feeling, and called those shortcuts a lifestyle. And lead me in the way everlasting. That is the invitation. That is the return. That is the beginning of something real. A life where you don't hide. A life where you learn to exist without the crowd. God didn't take you out of crowds. He is taking you out of fear. Fear of seeing yourself. Fear of hearing yourself. Fear of discovering what lives inside you, and realizing it's less frightening than you imagined. The truth is simple. Silence was never your enemy. It was your mirror, your training, your warning, your reunion with God. And when you finally have the courage to hear that silence, you'll discover something the crowd never gave you: awareness, direction, identity, and peace. If this revelation spoke to you, subscribe now and comment. I won't run from silence anymore. The first action is simple, but it requires emotional courage, corajum, emotional. You need to learn to be alone for controlled minutes, with no noise, no distractions, no running from yourself. This isn't meditation. It isn't a beautiful spiritual practice. It's controlled exposure to silence, exposição, psychological training to break the cycle of escape. Use strengthening the true self and dismantling the emotional prosthesis. Start with 3 minutes, just 3. Watch in hand, conscious breathing, and a quiet agreement with yourself. I can feel this without falling apart. At first, it will feel strange. Your body will resist. Your mind will try to run outward. Your chest will tighten. Silence will irritate you. But that's where healing begins. Winnicott said the true self appears in emptiness, in the space where nothing distracts you, in the moment where you don't need to perform. That's what you're training now, to be present with yourself, without audience, without crowd, without escape. The second action is spiritual, and just as practical. Today, even if it feels too simple, pray. But don't pray for noise, answers, or instant relief. Pray for revelation. Ask God to show you what you still can't see. Say only this: Lord, show me who I am when the noise ends. It's a short prayer, direct, unpolished, but it opens deep doors. This prayer activates something in you. It confronts the shadow Jung described, confronts the false identity you learned to wear, confronts the fear of being seen by God, confronts the habit of running from your own truth, and creates space for your soul to breathe. Because when you pray like this, you stop asking for anesthesia and start asking for awareness, conscientia. And awareness is the beginning of healing. It's the start of internal restructuring, the birth of a new version of you. 2 actions, 3 minutes of silence, 1 line of prayer, 1 step inward. Simple, yet transformative. If you allow it, now, if your mind drifted, come back to me. Pay attention, because this is exactly where your life starts to change. The next action is simple, but requires brutal honesty. Honestidad, brutal. You need to identify the trigger that pushes you toward the crowd. Multidão, not the place, not the people, but the exact emotion that comes right before the escape. The feeling that activates your need to disappear. Maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's rejection, maybe it's a sudden emptiness in your chest. Maybe it's the fear of feeling too much, or the fear of feeling too little. Only you can name it. Grab a notebook, write 3 questions. What was I feeling before I wanted to leave the house? What was I trying to escape from? What did the crowd promise me in that moment? Write with no filter. This practice breaks the autopilot, and that's essential for someone who lives running. Awareness weakens the cycle. Naming the pain reduces its power. Tracking the pattern reveals the truth, and truth heals more than noise. Now comes the spiritual step. Today, choose one person you always try to impress, someone you always try to please, someone you always try to look strong for. Pray for them, ora por ella. Yes, for them, not for you. This prayer removes the mask. It exposes the shadow Jung described. Because when you pray for someone who pressures you, you realize how much your identity was attached to that person. You realize you were seeking approval, not connection. You realize how much they controlled your internal movement. When you pray like this, something breaks. It breaks the silent emotional dependency. It breaks the performance instinct. It breaks the habit of seeking crowds to feel accepted. It breaks the illusion that you need to be seen to exist, and something new begins to form. Prayer changes the dynamic. It takes you out of victim mode and places you in awareness. When you pray for those who hurt you, you free yourself. When you hand it to God, you release emotional captivity and you breathe again. Now, bring both actions together, the notebook and the prayer, naming the trigger and giving it to God, identifying the emotion and asking for direction, recognizing the pattern and asking for healing. This is how you break the cycle. You don't need to run anymore, or chase crowds, or hide in noise, or disappear in full rooms, or bury yourself under other people's voices. But that, you'll only understand when you take the final step. You remember the crowded places, lugares lotados, the bright lights, the mixed voices, the feeling of losing yourself in everything, and calling that comfort. But now you see the cost. Today, you understand. It wasn't love for the crowd, multidão. It was fear of yourself, fear of silence, fear of your own truth, and everything is changing now. You don't need to disappear anymore. Don't need to dissolve in full rooms. Don't need to run from what you feel. Don't need to hide behind forced laughter. Don't need to shrink to fit. You're no longer a prisoner of noise. Silence, once threatening, now creates space. Space to breathe, space to exist, space to feel, space to find yourself, space for God to speak. You realize it was never the crowd saving you. It was God sustaining you inside it, even when you couldn't see it, even when you only wanted to escape, even when your soul was screaming. He kept you standing. Now, you look inward, without fear, without masks, without that urge to disappear, without that hunger for validation, without that selective hearing that only accepted noise. The pain didn't vanish, but it became a guide, a teacher, a direction, a form of awareness, and awareness is freedom. You understand Jung now. You understand the shadow. You understand why it grew when you ran. You understand why it quieted when you prayed. You understand why truth hurts, but heals. And you understand Winnicott too. The false self doesn't need to rule you. The emotional prosthesis doesn't need to hold you together. You found the true self. In the silence you once feared. In the silence God turned into home. You once feared seeing yourself. Today you fear losing yourself again. You have clarity now. You have direction. You have awareness. You have God. And that question that tormented you at the beginning, why do I feel so alone among so many, now has an answer. Because you didn't have yourself, but now you do. And you won't lose that again. If this message made sense to you, subscribe to our channel. Here, every story reveals why you suffer and what God is teaching you through it. Psychology to understand yourself. Spirituality to understand the meaning behind it. For you who made it to the end, comment, I return to myself, and may God restore everything the noise tried to steal from you.